Alright, so back here on the 1978 Toyota pickup, so I ran around the bed and hit it with the wire wheel, and I just tried to get after anything that looked real bubbly and nasty. Anywhere where there was going to be a mounting hole for the trim, and this is good, honestly. You know, this don't look pretty, it's pitted and everything. But you know, with that wire wheel, it is so aggressive with hitting the metal that if the metal's not structurally sound, it rips right through it. And so the fact that the wire wheel didn't get through here gives me a lot of encouragement. I looked where the mounting holes were in order to try to see like if I could gauge the thickness of the metal. And these points, you know, when they would drill through here and then put the rivets or whatever the mounting was, there would be no paint right in that little tiny hole. You know, they back in these days, they would have used, you know, self-tappers and rivets and stuff that would have been put on after paint. And so there had been no paint here, and the fact that this is not all completely rotted out and there would have been any paint here gives me a lot of encouragement that even though this doesn't look pretty, and it don't, it's pitted and ugly, structurally it's fine. So I'm not going to replace any of that. I even got after it. There's like little divots and stuff in it. I got after it with a pick to try to see if I could punch a hole through it, and nope, it's totally fine. Same thing with these spot welds that are down here. Not sure, it's kind of dark, so I'm not sure if you can see, but I hit these and they're not rusted through. So, you know, they must have, my guess is like the bed bent or got moved, and when it did, at these stress points where the spot welds were, it cracked the paint and then it got rust underneath there. But as far as like the structure, it's completely fine. I hit some of the worst ones with the wire wheel, and underneath it, I mean, it didn't even, you know, up here after hitting it with the wire wheel, it's still sort of pitted and yucky. But down here, it's shiny metal. Like this was just very like minor amount of rust that was behind here. So this is totally fine. Went around and basically hit all the seams everywhere in order to get an idea. And, you know, all the little mounting holes in order to just kind of give myself a sense for like, am I going to have to cut this out and patch it and all this stuff? You know, like I said, I mean, it's not good looking, but with some rust encapsulator and some epoxy, I mean, that's going to be fine. You know, it's a bit bumpy right now, but, you know, after, you know, a couple coats of primer, some high build sand, that's going to be no problem whatsoever. Corners and stuff look good. Coming over here, basically did the same thing. Hit all the seams, had some what I thought was pretty bad up here, but again, no big deal. And, you know, again, hitting all these holes. And honestly, nothing. You know, this looked pretty gnarly up in here. But same thing, you know, just hit it with the wire wheel and then use the pick on it. And it's fine. Like this is pitted, but as far as structure, it's totally good. Like, I'm very, very pleased with this. Like, the amount of metalwork I got here is nothing compared to the cab. So this is great news. So now working on these corners here. So what this looked like was like this. Okay, so there was the reflector that was mounted on it previously, and then that got all rotted out from behind. And then there was this little like archway looking thing was a bump stop for the tailgate. So, you know, like if the chain broke or you opened up the tailgate pass where the chain was for whatever reason, there's them little bump stops there in order to keep the tailgate from hitting up against the bed. I'm deleting that. I don't have any reason to have that on there. It was all rusted out and the bump stop thing was ruined. I don't see any reason for me to have that. And so deleting it, and so I made that piece to go here. Same as everything, make a cardboard template, make marks around it. This, because it's not like the floor where, you know, the bottom side of it's going to get undercoated, no one will ever see it, and then carpet and or like sound deadening and carpet goes on the top part, again, no one will ever see it. You know, you can kind of beat the hell out of the panel in order to get it to fit in there, and it doesn't matter. But with something like this, you know, there is a bumper that goes across, and, you know, it is a beat up old truck. While, you know, it doesn't need to be super perfect. But this does need to be nicer than the floor. And so just took a whole ton of time, you know, using the sanders, slowly but surely nibbling away, getting my marks lined up, getting the magnets in there, all that other stuff. Just, you know, getting little bits knocked out incrementally in order to get this to fit in there nice. And so this is a lot more like what I had to do for the rockers and the cab corners, where you got to take a lot of time in order to get that piece lined up as nice as possible. You know, even this little tiny lip that's right here, it seems like nothing. You know, when I go to weld that, I'll push it in from the other side in order to get that flush, and then incrementally just keeping it super flush and tight all the way through. And then that'll have to get ground smooth, or, you know, mostly smooth, in order to, you know, make that look as nice as possible. So these are way more tedious to do these pieces than the floors. But really, I mean, at the end of the day, it's not too terrible. So I'll get a couple of tacks on this. You know, the top part of it, you know, you can see I didn't bend it to follow this line. You know, I'm not pre-bending it. What I'll do is incrementally just tack, 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 tack all the way through and have it follow this naturally as it's getting welded in place. You know, I don't have the talent to try to make this in one piece and get that bend in there ahead of time. You know, I can't possibly do that. To get that nice, perfect, you know, gap all the way, I mean, not gap, but a nice, perfect curve all along here to line up all this perfectly, and then, you know, these corners and all that other crap, like, no way. I can't do that. So I'll get this sort of like tacked in and push and tack and push and tack and push and get that top part in. So we'll see how it goes. Alright, so that's in there. You know, just slowly but surely going around and, you know, hammering and getting things to fit. So I'll probably hammer a little tiny bit there. But yeah, the rest of it's fitting in there real good. So, you know, follows the line and everything. So should work out no problem. And then, you know, like I said, this is a pain in the butt because, you know, you're left with all these stitch welds all over the place. And then you gotta carefully grind that in order to get it smooth, and then finally hit it with the flap wheel. So these are super tedious. I'll probably weld that one in, put that one in, and then suit up and get to grinding afterwards, because, you know, that makes such a big old mess and takes a while that I don't really want to stop and do it again. So, all right, well, I'll get after the other one. Thanks. See you in the next one.